In this section, we're going to talk about different techniques, really common ones. We're going to go over them relatively quickly, so you may want to record this on your DVR so you can rewind, pause, replay, etc. You can also always view this part of the show on the website at theultimateguitarshow.com. In this section, I'm going to teach you about hammer-ons and pull-offs, a very common technique. Now, what a hammer-on is when you hit the first note and then throw your finger onto the next note without using the pick to make the note ring. For example, I'm going to take my first finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. I'm going to hit that note with the pick, and then with my left hand, my 3rd finger is going to hit really hard onto the fingerboard without using the pick, and it's going to make a note. Watch this. I'm going to hit the 5th fret, and then notice I hammered on my 3rd finger. Now, a lot of people make the mistake, they think that they have to hammer on really fast, like right when they hit the note, and you don't. What you can do is you can actually hold that note as long as you want, but when you do hammer on, you want to go hard and fast and aim for as close to the center of the fret as you can, meaning in between the bars as much as possible. So I'll hit the 5th fret, 3rd string, and I'm going to hammer onto my 3rd finger, 7th fret, 3rd string. Again. Notice the pick is only plucking the first note. A pull-off is the exact opposite of a hammer-on. I'll put both fingers down on the same 2 frets, only now I'll have my 3rd finger down to start. I'll hit that note, and then I'll pull my finger off, and that will actually make the 5th fret ring. So watch this. I'll hit the 7th fret with the pick. And when I pulled off, I pulled slightly down, which kind of got the string to ring a little bit more, and I made sure I was fretting out that 5th fret, so it sounded like this. So a hammer-on is typically going low note to high, or 5th fret up to 7th fret. A pull-off would be the opposite direction. You can do a hammer-on to a pull-off, where I'll hit the 5th fret right now, hammer on to 7, pull back off to 5. So I'll only strike the first note with the pick. The other 2 notes will be a hammer-on to a pull-off. Watch this. A good way to practice your hammer-ons and pull-offs will be to do what we call trills, and that's just a repetitive motion of hammer-ons and pull-offs. One of my favorite exercises is a pretty simple one. You're going to basically hit the 5th fret on the 1st string, hammer onto the 6th fret with your 2nd finger, pull back off to 5, then hammer on to 7, pull back off to 5, hammer to 8, pull back off to 5, all the while leaving 1 finger per fret. So what I'm really saying is we're going to go 5 to 6 with our 1st finger to 2nd finger, then 5 to 7 with our 3rd finger, then 5 to 8 with our 4th finger. So it sounds like this. Notice I'm not using the pick except for on the very first note. Okay, kind of a cool exercise. Builds up your dexterity, builds up your speed, and will really get you comfortable doing hammer-ons and pull-offs. Slides are another very common technique that we'll use on the guitar. What a slide is where we'll hit the first note and then slide to the next note. So it's very smooth sounding, similar to a hammer-on and a pull-off, except we're actually going to use the same finger to get from one point to the next. For this example, let's slide with our 1st finger, 3rd fret, 5th string, same place we started on the hammer-ons and pull-offs. Let's hit that note and slide up to the 7th fret instead of doing a hammer-on this time. Again, notice I'm only hitting the first note with the pick, but I'm hearing 2 notes. 1, 2 when I slide. I can slide up and back. I can slide with any finger I want. You can do really long slides, 2 up to 12, for example. 14 down to 2. Okay, so slides can be moved all over the fingerboard, and again, they're a very common technique used in what we call legato playing. What legato playing is when we try to play things real smooth sounding, as opposed to staccato, which is much more choppy. A good exercise to practice your slides is simply just going from 5 to 6 to 5, 5 to 7 to 5, 5 to 8 to 5, and just continually create bigger intervals of your slides. For example, I might go to that first string similar to our hammer-on pull-off exercise, only this time I might go 5, slide to 6, back to 5, 5, slide to 7, back to 5, etc. It sounds like this. Now, one of the tricks with slides is that you have to continually press the string as you slide from one note to the next. You can't take the note, hit it, and then pick your finger up. and move it, you'll lose the note. The string will quit vibrating. So what you have to do is actually hold the note down all the way. So you'll feel it. You'll definitely get calluses. Your fingers will get a little bit sore. It's not going to be super painful, but you will notice it. Bends. One of the most important things you can learn to be expressive on the guitar is how to do a bend properly. What a bend is when we take the note and we actually bend it. Now the general rules, a couple rules we can follow that are really helpful. First off is that strings 1, 2, and 3 most of the time are going to push up for your bend. What I mean by that is, say for example I use my third finger on the 7th fret first string, I'm going to push the string up to bend the note. Second string, same thing. Third string, same. When I get to the 4th string though, I want to pull down. 5th down and 6th down. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm always aiming to try to bend the note towards the center of the fingerboard. There are several different intervals of bends. The first we're going to talk about is a quarter bend. And what a quarter bend is, when we bend the note just very slightly, you're just going to hear a little change in the note. A lot of times it'll be called the blue note. It sounds like this. I'm going to say first finger, 5th fret, 3rd string. I'm going to do a quarter bend up. Just a little note change there. Okay, a half bend is when we bend a note to sound a half step higher. And what that means is I'm going to take my 5th fret and I want it to sound a half step, which is 1 fret higher in pitch. That would be the 6th fret. So I want my 5th fret on the 3rd string to sound like my 6th fret. Well, how do I do that? First, I would hit the 6th fret so I know what the pitch sounds like. Get that stuck in my head, and then I'm going to bend the 5th and try to match it. Makes sense? So that's a half bend. A full bend then would obviously be I want to sound like the note 2 frets higher than the note I'm playing. For example, if I'm playing that same 5th fret on the 3rd string, now I want to sound like the 7th fret. So again, I want to get my pitch reference by hitting the 7th fret 3rd string. Now I want to bend the 3rd to sound like that. One of the really important rules with bends is that whatever finger I'm bending with, that's how many fingers should be down on the same string to help it out whenever possible. For example, if I want to bend the 7th fret 3rd string with my 3rd finger, well then I want my 2nd and 1st fingers both down on that 3rd string also to help me bend. Say I want to do a full bend. There's 9. I want it to sound like that. I'll sit and practice that until I get the pitch right. Different intervals of bends are going to be important depending upon which key you're in, so it's really important that you know whether or not you should be doing a half bend or a full bend on a given bend. Probably the best way to practice your bends is to randomly call out a finger, a fret, a string, and a bend interval. For example, here's what I would do if I wanted to practice my bends and get more proficient at the pitch. So I'd say, okay, I want my 3rd finger, 10th fret, 2nd string, half bend. So I get my 3rd finger, I go up to the 10th fret, go to the 2nd string, and I say, okay, if I'm going to do a half bend, that means my 10 needs to sound a half step higher, which would be 1 fret, which would be 11. So I'll hit 11 and listen to it. Since I'm bending with my 3rd finger, I'm going to have all 3 fingers down. I'm going to now go on my 10th fret and try to bend it to sound like my 11. There's 11. All right, let's work on our right hand and our picking. Let's start by alternate picking. And what we're going to do here is basically alternate between downstrokes and upstrokes, and we're going to do it while using what we call a chromatic scale. A chromatic scale just simply means we're going to hit 4 notes in a row, starting on the 5th fret of the 1st string, and we're going to use 1 finger per fret, which means our 1st finger will cover the 5th fret of the 1st string, 2nd finger 6th fret, 3rd finger 7, 4th finger 8. We're going to do that by going down, up, and just do that all in a row. Now what we can do to make that a little more challenging and to move our fingers around a little bit more is to go backwards on that. We can go 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 8, 7, 6, 5. It sounds like this. Notice my right hand is constantly alternate picking. Okay? If we want to get more advanced with that and you feel comfortable with that, let's take that same exact exercise and start on the first string and work our way down to the sixth string. That would sound like this. Again, alternate picking, no pauses between string changes. We can go up 1 fret up to 9 with our pinky and go backwards. And then back to 5 with our first finger and start over. And that's a wonderful exercise for your chromatic scale. Thanks for tuning into the Ultimate Guitar Show. Remember, you can always log on to our website, theultimateguitarshow.com, for more information regarding show times or guests you've seen on the show. And I want to thank Cox Channel 3 for airing the show. I want to thank Mesa Boogie Amplifiers for my amplifiers and Taylor Guitars for making the best guitars on the planet. We'll see you back here real soon.